Hello, beautiful human. So I play the game with the rule of threes. If something happens or shows up in my space several times, 3 times in a short amount of time, I take it as a sign from the universe to come here and share with you about it. And tonight I've got one for you that is a little heavy and a little personal. So bear with me here. There is so much value, and it is such an important gift to be able to give someone, to build that muscle for yourself and your self awareness of knowing how to hold space for someone. For me, holding space, I know that's a very vague term, so I want to try to make it very tangible here because I'm going somewhere with this. Holding space for me means that when I am being with a person, I do my best to take everything out of the space between us. I try to bring nothing to that space other than a container. So, examples help, right? If somebody comes to me and shares with me and gets very vulnerable with me, Sunny, you know what? Me too. I was assaulted too. I've been sexually assaulted, harassed, etc. I have my own baggage around that. Depending on the context of the conversation and what they share, that could trigger things from my own past. However, if I'm in the mode of holding space, I'm going to push all of my baggage, all of my shit, all of my triggers to the background. And as they share with me, if I find myself triggered, if I find myself reflecting on my own experience, I'm going to push it to the background. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to pull it out right after that conversation is over. It doesn't mean I'm not going to move through those emotions. Because for somebody to stay healthy, you really need to do that. So I'm not suggesting compartmentalizing or stepping over or ignoring your experience at all. What I'm suggesting is that you push it to the side, keep it out of the space between you and that person so that you can hold space for their experience in that moment. And here's why. They're bringing something to you. They're sharing with you something that is incredibly vulnerable. And it takes courage to do that. And clearly, they're sharing with you out of a desire to process in some way. And unless you are asked, do you have experience with this? Can you share with me how you dealt with it? Do you have advice for me? Do you have any thoughts for me, right? If there's an invitation to share, by all means. Unless asked, keep it out of the space. Here's why this is coming up in my space, I think. So many of us have lost people over the past couple of years, whether it was directly due to COVID-19 or you just happen to lose somebody for another reason. We didn't get to attend funerals for quite some time. Many of us have lost people that we didn't get to do the normal human rituals around saying goodbye. And so I think a lot of us have a lot of grief that's just on the surface. And over the past couple of years, a lot of things have been brought to the surface for us as a collective society, especially in the US. There's all this conversation. I mean, this has been going on for years now, but around Me Too and sexual assault, the conversation around systemic racism was really brought to the surface and is in people's faces in a way that it hasn't been for a long time. And so I just feel like there's a lot of people who are moving through and sharing of significant experiences. And if we can learn to just shut up and listen and hold the space, I think that we have the ability to create a container for vulnerability, authenticity, and the big one is healing. I want to give you a couple of specific examples because I feel like it's really important to make this tangible and something that might trigger a thought process for you that might have you look to build this muscle to be stronger for yourself. If somebody comes to you and says, I already used this example, but I'm going to say it again. If somebody comes to you and says, Sunny, me too, I have been assaulted, shut up and hold the space. If somebody comes to you and says, I just received a serious diagnosis and I'm concerned for my health, your first thought might be, oh my gosh, I don't want to lose this beautiful human in front of me. Shut up and hold the space. Somebody may come to you and say, I've lost a family member. I'm losing a family member. And you may have so many questions, right? How did they get sick? Where are they? Can I go visit them? Shut up and hold the space. When you go into your own stuff, asking your questions, sharing of your stories, you're then forcing that other person to be with your emotions. And often that's not helpful for them. That's not what they're asking for. And so in my world, when somebody starts to share something that's heavy or significant, and those around me, we tend to pause and say, hold on, before you go any further, how do you want me to hold the space for you? Do you want to vent? Do you want to feel validated? Are you looking for solutions, or do you just want me to listen? And then I know what kind of container that they're wanting me to hold space for, and I can then bring that to them. So ask, how do you want me to listen? How do you want me to be in this conversation? And if you don't get an opportunity to ask, if it feels awkward, if there's not a segue for that, just shut up and listen. That's pretty much always the solution. Shut up and listen. It's a gift. It's a gift that you have to, it's a muscle that you have to develop for yourself, right? So it's a gift you have to give to yourself to learn how to do it. And it's an incredibly valuable gift to be able to give to another human being. And then the secondary part of that is being able to go back through the conversation, notice where your triggers were pushed, where your trauma was resurfaced, where you have baggage or questions that you want to ask, and dealing with those after the fact so that you're not compartmentalizing or stepping over your own experience. We don't want to do emotional bypassing. That's not what I'm suggesting. And it's such a gift to hold space for someone else. I think that's all I have to say about that right now. If you got this far, thanks. And if you're curious, like I said, this is a game I play. I do videos of the rule of threes all the time. Sometimes it's really trivial stuff, and sometimes it's big, heavy stuff like this. So if you're interested, consider following and subscribing.